Steam enthusiasts had often wished, hoped, and dreamed of seeing a Union Pacific big boy steam once more. In early May of 2019, after nearly 60 years since the last one operated in regular service, restored 4884 number 4014 would operate once more to make the dream a reality. With the deadline approaching for the scheduled departure from Chyene on May 4th, the engine was coming down to the wire. Finally, late in the day of May 2nd, 2019, 4014 would operate for the first time on a break-in run. In lovely late afternoon sunshine, we see the 4014 on the test run departing Chyene, shot by Darren Gunnell. After a previous inspection at Spear, the 4014 has arrived in Nunn, Colorado in total darkness. This gives us a chance to see the engine up close, watch some of the servicing, and get some background information on the big boy. This footage at Nunn was captured by Bill Rogers. When the Union Pacific decided to restore a big boy, the steam team began the search for the best candidate. 4014 was chosen from the Rail Giants Museum in Pomona, California. Diesel 3105 and a caboose were traded for 4014, and in 2014 the locomotive was towed to Chyene, where the steam crew would restore the big boy. The goal was to steam into Ogden in time for the 150th anniversary of the joining of the Transcontinental Railroad, which occurred on May 10, 1869. 25 4884 articulated locomotives were built by the American Locomotive Company in Schenectady, New York, with engines numbered 4000 through 4019 being the first delivered in 1941. An Alco employee chalked the words "Big Boy" on the smoke box of number 4000, since the locomotive was so huge and would later be known as the largest in length of any class of steam engine to operate. Even though the chalk was removed before engine 4000 was placed into service, the Big Boy nickname stuck to the 4000 series engines. The 4000 series locomotives sported a unique 4884 wheel arrangement with 68-inch driving wheels and operated at 300 pounds of boiler pressure. Originally, the tenders held 24,000 gallons of water and 28 tons of coal. 4014 has been converted to burn number 5 fuel oil during its recent restoration and is using the tender from Challenger 3985, which was converted to burn oil in 1990. Here, on May 2, 2019, 4014 ended its southward journey toward Greeley. With inspection stops and the late departure, the run was cut short at Nunn, Colorado. The diesel on the rear pulled the train back to Chyene during the early morning hours of May 3rd. During May 3rd, adjustments were performed on the locomotive and final preparations were made for the May 4th departure of Big Boy 4014 West. The original plan was to send 844 to Ogden with a special train prior to the big boy, but with crew time needed to finish the 4014, it was decided to make the trip a doubleheader. On May 4th, the day most had marked on their calendars for many months, the train departed Cheyenne bound for Ogden, Utah, as captured by Scott Griggs.
Putting on the oil.
The train is next seen approaching Spear, where the line splits to go south toward Nunn and Denver, Colorado. Big Boy 4014 leads, followed by 484 number 844, SD70AH Diesel number 8937, and 9 support cars and coaches. The winds of Wyoming in this barren region are legendary and will play havoc with video microphones off and on throughout our coverage. We may substitute a little music or information where we cannot hear the train due to distances or the wind. The train is taking Track 3, which was opened in 1953 to lessen the westbound grade from Cheyenne to the summit of Shreman Hil. Just prior to the summit, it joins Tracks 1 and 2 at Dale Junction, before topping the grade inside Hermosa Tunnel. At this classic Union Pacific location, we see 4014 emerge from Hermosa Tunnel as it begins the descent toward Laramie. The train is passing Hermosa, where we see it from the south side of the tracks, then again from the north side, captured by Christopher Kovacs. We will enjoy video coverage from Cheyenne to Ogden by Scott Griggs, Darren Gunnow, and Christopher Kovacs. After Hermosa, we see a still photo of the huge crowd at Laramie. Next, we enjoy some pacing scenes west of Basler. This was not planned, but the traffic bottled up along the interstate several times during the day. While the 4014 is grabbing all the headlines, and rightly so, we do not want to leave out 844. The impressive 484, classed as FEF-3, was the last of 45 engines built by Alco in 1944, and the last steam engine built for the Union Pacific. It ran in passenger service until running out its final days hauling freight in Nebraska between 1957 and 1959. The engines featured large 80-inch diameter driving wheels for high-speed passenger service. The locomotive has operated in excursion and public relations roles since 1960. Thus, the engine has the rare distinction of having never been retired. 3 other 484s exist, including 814, 833, and 838. .4014 is the largest operating steam locomotive in the world, with a total engine and tender length of nearly 133 feet. The locomotive weighs nearly 1.2 million pounds. The 4014's last revenue run was in 1959. It pulled a freight train into Cheyenne, Wyoming on July 21st of that year. This was the final day any big boy operated before 2019. In 1961, it was donated to the Rail Giants collection and moved to Pomona, California, where it stayed until 2014. The May 4th run was from Chyene to Rawlins, and on May 5th, the 4014 continued west, running from Rawlins to Rock Springs. We first see the train here west of Rawlins, then at Creston, Wyoming, which is about 7 miles west of Rawlins, at the crossing of the Continental Divide. A scheduled stop was made at Wamsutter, where local folks and fans could get a look at the newly rebuilt locomotive, and the crew could do lubrication work. The trip to Ogden was a leisurely schedule to allow for servicing stops and opportunities for public viewing. While we mostly hear about the Big Boy territory being east of Ogden and Shreman Hil from Chyene to Laramie, we must remember they were used on this section of track also. Green River, Rawlins, and Laramie were important terminals for the Big Boys during their years in service, as was Denver, Colorado. Watching the crew members service the 4014, you get a sense of the enormity of the locomotive. With the wind really whipping things around, we get a nice departure from Wamsutter, despite the large group of trackside spectators. No less than 8 big boys were saved at the end of the steam era. Besides the 4014, which is now operational, 7 more are on public display, including 4004 at Holiday Park in Cheyenne, Wyoming, 4005 at the Forney Transportation Museum in Denver, Colorado, 4006 at the National Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri, 4012 at Steamtown National Historic Site in Scranton, Pennsylvania, 4017 at the National Railroad Museum in Green Bay, Wisconsin, 4018 at the Museum of the American Railroad in Frisco, Texas, and 4023 at the Lauritsen Gardens in Omaha, Nebraska. Next, we see the train depart Point of Rocks. Thousands of folks traveled from all over the United States and many foreign countries to see the big boy. Couple that with local interest, and a huge crowd could be seen at all stops and on the highways each day. Now we get to see pacing scenes west of Point of Rocks. After the pacing scenes, we will see 2 more short scenes trackside between Point of Rocks and the overnight stop at Rock Springs to end Day 2 of Big Boy 4014 West. The train departed Rock Springs well before sunrise on the morning of May 6th to allow for a track maintenance window. First, we see the train at Green River in the dark as it arrives for a scheduled service stop. The 4014 leads the train out of Green River and is next seen heading into Granger, with the first rays of sunlight glinting off the flanks of the train on this cold spring morning. Here is a different view of the train coming under the same overpass where the last scene was made, as the steam special is arriving for a service stop in Granger. Granger is where the line to Pocatello and the Pacific Northwest splits from the line we are taking to Ogden. .4014 is bringing the train into Carter, where another service stop was made. Afterwards, we see a nice departure, which includes a meet with an eastbound freight as the engines clear our position before the freight goes by.
down front.
The train is on the outskirts of Evanston, where they suspect there is a close clearance issue with big rocks that are dumped along the main line. Manpower is used to move the smaller ones, but heavy lifting equipment had to be brought in to move a few of the bigger ones just to be safe. 4014 pulls the train into Evanston, which was an important point in big boy history since it was built for the grade from Ogden to Evanston that climbs the Wasatch Mountain Range. On May 7th, the train was on display at Evanston, and on May 8th, the 4014 heads for Ogden on a chilly, moisture-filled morning. The train is first seen just west of Evanston, which is upgrade to the summit at Wasatch. The red cliffs of Echo Canyon have always been a recognizable and scenic location along the Union Pacific in this region, so it's no wonder we have multiple camera coverage here today. This area is all downgrade, but the train makes a nice sight with morning steam in the cool weather and the lovely mountain backdrop. train is on the outskirts of Ogden, and the 4014 has nearly completed the 483-mile journey from Cheyenne, Wyoming, on its first trip in nearly 6 decades under its own power. .844 and 4014 participated in an all-Union Pacific ceremony at Ogden on May 9th. CEO Lance Fritz presided over the festivities.
So let's get started. Let's get into what we're here for today. I want to introduce the celebrities of the sport. On my left, Union Pacific number 844, the living legend. Brought to Union Pacific in 1944, topping out at a speed of 110 miles an hour. Far down the track on my right, the latest steam locomotive to join the Union Pacific family, the big boy, Union Pacific 4014. All 1.2 million pounds, 7,000 horsepower of steel and fire waiting down the track.
Union Pacific Lance Fritz calling Union Pacific Big Boy number 4014. Over. Union Pacific 4014 responding to Chairman Lance Fritz. Come in, over. I'm in position in front of your locomotive. We're ready for you to make a move. Are you ready? Over. UP 4014 is ready to proceed. Chairman Fritz, over. Pacific 4014, take them ahead. Over. Understood. Here we come. Union Pacific coming ahead. Here we come, sir.
Okay, one last thing. We're going to close this event today the same way we closed that epic day 150 years ago tomorrow. Then, they used a state-of-the-art communications technique in the telegraph as they telegraphed to the country for completion. At 2:27 p.m. that day, a telegraph from Promontory. Almost ready. Hats off. Prayer is being offered. Chicago replies, we understand. All is ready in the east. At 2:47, the telegraph from Promontory was the simple word done. So please join me in using today's modern, state-of-the-art communication and share your location that you're here today by using whatever social media channel you use and taking this moment, hashtag done.
Christopher Kovacs shot the Ogden ceremony on May 9th, and scenes here at Promontory Summit, Utah on May 10th, 2019. This is where the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific drove the Golden Spike on May 10th, 1869, completing the first transcontinental railroad in the United States. We view scenes of the preparations and sample some of the ceremony in this segment. These replica locomotives recreate the scene regularly at the Golden Spike National Historic Park throughout the year, but today is the 150th anniversary.
I think I saw that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride that I, Tom Durant, President of the Union Pacific Railroad, drive in this final spike. Oh, let's go with the Cheyonos have tried. In the end, no one knows who struck the final blow, and maybe this just it should be. Was it just one man who made it all possible? Many people, many hands, minds, and hearts came together in a
Dr. H.W. Harkness, who will present 2 railroad spikes to Dr. Thomas C. Durant of the Union Pacific Railroad and Governor Leland Stanford of the Central Pacific Railroad. Dr. Durant and Governor Stanford will then place these spikes into holes that have already been drilled in the laurelwood tie. But these are not ordinary spikes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are golden spikes made from pure California gold. Dr. Harkness, as Mr. Schilling gives a signal that the last spike is driven, a magnetic ball will fall in the dome of the national capitol. In San Francisco, the fire alarm bell will ring. A volley of 200 rounds will be fired in salute at Fort Point. And in Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell will ring again.
We're ready. Promontory to the country. All ready now. Dr. Durant has requested the spike. The spike will soon be driven. The signal will be 3 dots for the commencement of the flow. All right, Newton. Oh! Promontory to the country. Bulletin. D. O. N. E. Done. United States.
Also on May 10th, 4014 is seen at Ogden as they position the equipment for the eastbound train which would depart on May 12th. It's a rare chance to see 4014 alone as it backs toward the depot on this clear day. On May 12th, the return trip eastward towards Cheyenne begins, traveling from Ogden to Evanston. Fortunately, Darren Gunow was on hand to cover this run, with the first scene being at Strawberry, Utah. A one-way excursion was offered to the public with bus return. This was a fundraiser for the Golden Spike Foundation. Coach seats were $3,000, and dome car seating was $5,000. This would also be the first excursion behind 4014, and the first time it would assault the eastbound climb up the Wasatch Mountains. The Union Pacific originally intended to call these engines the Wasatch types after these mountains, and planned to have these 4 884s operate in this territory. Except for a few instances, the big boys ran between Ogden and Chyene to Denver. They were based out of Cheyenne for their last year of service in 1959. The steam team has done a remarkable job, and Union Pacific can continue to be proud of its heritage locomotive fleet. The Big Boy has received worldwide recognition and has been seen by tens of thousands of admirers. Many people had their wishes come true seeing a Big Boy in operation in 2019. We end our coverage of May 12th with one more shot as the train nears Evanston. It's only fitting that the final scene is a reflection of the engine and train, perhaps reflecting the steam days of the past with the present. We carry several other related DVDs, including some vintage shows that have big boys in regular service on the Union Pacific Railroad. Please check our website or on our YouTube channel, where you can see previews of these and other railroad videos.
"2015 was a remarkable year, with the return of Norfolk and Western Class J number 611 to steam. This famous 484 is now in its third career and is seen in North Carolina and Virginia. We enjoy the first public event for the locomotive at the North Carolina Transportation Museum in Spencer, North Carolina. We watch close-ups on the turntable, entering the roundhouse, and enjoy some photo freights, complete with an N&W combine on the rear. Then we watch some of the action of the homecoming trip from Spencer to Roanoke on May 30th, 2015, as throngs of locals and enthusiasts welcome the 611 back to Roanoke. The bulk of the coverage is 3 days of outstanding trips from Roanoke to Lynchburg and Roanoke to Walton each day, with the many grades that make 611 look and sound spectacular. Don't miss 611 Trilogy Volume 1. "611 Trilogy Volume 2 covers excursions from Roanoke in 2016, with 2-a-day round trips to Lynchburg, then to Walton, Virginia. Enjoy 611 working hard on the grades, such as Blue Ridge and Christiansburg. Multiple camera crews give great coverage to these trips. Then enjoy the one-way ferry trip from Roanoke to Manassas on former N&W and Southern trackage. Special efforts are made to get the engine on grades for the greatest sight and sound experiences. Don't miss 611 Trilogy Volume 2. "611 Trilogy Volume 3 covers excursions from Greensboro to Roanoke over 2 days in April of 2016, and 3 shorter excursions from Manassas to Front Royal in early June. The Greensboro trips were some of the coolest weather and clear skies of the 2016 season for 611 excursions, and featured fast running on the former Southern Main Line and over the former Virginian Railway to Roanoke. The Manassas trips cover some varied scenery on this single-track line, but several grades, including Linden Hill in both directions. This video is chock full of great 611 sight and sound experiences. "489 Cab Ride." It's a great ride on the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad over the former Denver and Rio Grande narrow gauge. We ride train number 215 westbound from Antonito to Sublet, some 26 miles, to enjoy all aspects of riding inside the cab. Enjoy views of the engineer and the fireman, plus see views of the track ahead and the interesting locations along the route. It's a special ride that few fans get to experience. Enjoy all the sights and sounds in 489 Cab Ride.